Welcome back to Doc Shows You How. Today we're turning a paintbrush caddy into a piece of quality terrain. Costs about $2. I've seen these kits going as far as $70 for something licensed from Games Workshop, that kind of thing. Let's go ahead and get to the table, get this started. You're going to need to run over to the dollar store, pick up one of these paintbrush caddies. I don't know if it's $1.25, $1.50, something like that. They've changed their whole price structure. I do want to take a moment here and thank those of you that engaged with the community post earlier and correctly guessed that was a paintbrush caddy. Here was a really hard one to pick out of those pictures, was that I'm using a Pringles can for some of the construction of the stairs. Now I'll tell you something about stairs. I love and hate stairs on terrain. On the one hand, it looks awesome. Always looks awesome. On the other hand, it's always a pain in the ass. So we're just going to be cutting a couple diagonal pieces out of this. We're essentially following the seam line of the cardboard on that. And I want a little bit of extra strength, so I'm going to use some brush on Gorilla Super Glue. And we're just going to double up on these pieces. We sand stuff to make things glue better, and we're just going to glue that right on. Now I'm using a base for a Star Wars Legion figure, but if you're doing this in a slightly different scale, or you have a bigger base like for some of the Warhammer 40k stuff, just do it with this. So what we're doing is I'm just using that as a spacer between each of the steps, so that hopefully we can use a figure on the steps. And so there you go. Do it at the top and then back to the bottom. Lay down the base, glue on the board, and then continue this process until you drive yourself mentally insane and need to seek psychiatric help. There you go. Cool stairs, right? Vitamin bottles. Yours may vary. Let's trim that off. That ended up being too tall for this particular piece for me. And I like those as a kind of holding tank. So we're going to glue those in place. Now I'm going to tell you guys something about this that I'm not super proud of. I hated doing this project. It's been something that haunted me. It's been on the shelf of shame for more than a year. Here I'm experimenting with 2 different color LEDs to do a source lighting. And we're using quarter machine pods and some packing foam I got to diffuse that light. And even though it looks really cool with this kind of disco light changing colors in there, very sci-fi, underhive kind of thing, I like the classic tea light because it looks like it's flickering, meaning it's a broken light. Use a medicine lid here. Now when I say I hated this project, here's why. I usually do a prototype and work out all the little kinks before I film something for you folks, so I show you a really relatively easy method, recipe. This thing, I didn't do that. I figured, oh, this is going to be easy. It's always those projects you think are going to be easy that just end up biting you in the butt. This one for sure. Now, this trick with the Velcro I'm showing you here, I tried that a couple times previously with magnets, and even though it was very satisfying to just use magnets to hold that light in place, magnets destroy those batteries pretty quick, and I end up changing them all the time. So I switched out to Velcro this time to hopefully avoid that. Bit of standard corrugated paper. I'm just pinching the one in that might be visible to help it look a little bit more finished, even though it's going to be dirty as all get out. But yeah, so I started building this thing over a year ago, and it frustrated me because I didn't have a plan. I didn't do a prototype beforehand. I just thought, hey, here's a cool piece of stuff from the dollar store, reasonably cheap, that anybody can get their hands on and maybe build a cool looking thing. Without much of a plan, I started filming it, and aside from the hating to do stairs like I mentioned, it just rode on me, and finally I got so frustrated I put down. And finally I just wanted to get it done. I I do like the end product and it looks great, and I hope you folks take this idea and run with it and don't let it sit on your pile of shame for a year like I did. I'm going to suggest every time you work with these tea lights, every new thing you do, test it, make sure it works. We're going to move on to the hoses. I've got some of this small gauge rope and some paracord, and that gives a nice texture. You can't quite see it there. So I'm just going to prep this, trim off the stuff, melt down the piece, be careful with fire, it's hot, blah blah blah. Cheap pony beads, I'm just going to glue that on the one end to give me a more substantial place to help glue it down. And yes, hot molten plastic is hot. So the glue to help make sure that it stays in there a little bit better. And we're going to work on placing it.
And then of course we need to make sure that we get some loops on this so it hangs and gives it some gravity. It makes it look more hose-like.
So I added a bit of black corrugated plastic there, just using a paper clip to make a handrail. Punch that through the top layer and super glue that in place. How to finish off the top of those stairs is one of the things that had me stuck for a while. It was just that creative block. Base coat the whole thing gray, and let's start masking it off for the landing markings. I'm going to use this liquid latex nail mask. There's lots of ways to do a mask. This is just something relatively easy to get your hands on. And we're going to shoot the whole thing this kind of sunflower yellow. And then unmasking is always fun to watch. Very satisfying. Alright. And then you're going to see me here rubbing that latex off. See how that looks all broken and more lived in there. And then we're going to go ahead and hide the sins, because when I put that tape on there, it pulled off some of the paint. So rather than going in there and repainting the whole thing, I'm just going to use some silver paint pen and just make it look like it was worn through. Okay, Brian, thank you, sir, for calling me out. Even though I was pissed off with this project, there's no reason not to make it look good. You said I should have some mesh in there, and you are correct, sir. Thanks for keeping me on my toes and honest with you all. And now, because I should have put this in the very beginning and didn't, I do have to trim it out and mess with it a whole bunch to make sure it lays flat. But you'll see it ends up looking great by the end here. The tea light thing, we're going to go ahead and work on dirtying it up with some just common craft paint, water down a bunch. There's the black, there's the burnt sienna. Love that burnt sienna. It's one of the few things about buying paint that makes me feel like the kind of characteristic artist. It's not just paint, it's burnt sienna. Now you'll see how that water flows in there, so to kind of help it look right, we're going to paint this in the orientation it's going to be in the piece in the terrain, so that water, the washes, kind of pool there at the bottom. Mostly that's all that's going to be seen once it's in that pill bottle lid housing anyway. And this is a slightly different way of weathering things. This is not watered down. It's regular acrylic. Put it on, give it a minute. You want it to dry a little, but not entirely. And we're going to dab a lot of it off. It's a different kind of weathering. And we're going to get into this, the weathering on the big guy here. You've all seen weathering before. If you need to see more detailed video on that, I will put a card on the screen here with a link to my billboards, the paint job video. I go into some great detail there. And this really is where it starts feeling heavy and dirty and a little neglected. And so this is a snub fighter landing pad. Just using some red to make some of those hoses pop. I don't get you a whole lot of videos of that. Here's where we just add some posters and signage. I've collected a bunch over the years and just have a folder of them. We're just going to use some regular old PVA glue, Elmer's glue. And put a kind of warning sign here. I'm using a brush to get it this time around. Just kind of brush and pin that down. We'll go back through and dirty those up to make them match the rest of the paint job later. Alright, and let's go ahead and put a sign here as though this was made by good old Wayland Yutani. Every universe has a Wayland Yutani. They're always a frickin' problem.
Just a little bit of a darker silver gunmetal, make that look a little lived in. I think it makes it pop a whole lot. And I glue that in with a little bit of CA glue from the bottom. I just don't show that. Some UV resin. This stuff had a short life as far as a fad, but you can still get it. It's still around. Pretty easy to use. I just want to add some dripping slime or fuel or something. Pretty easy to apply that. And then we're going to use just a little bit of the UV light to bake it. Small piece of this fish line to help make the drip look active. And bake that again too. Hey folks, if you made it this far and you're not subscribed already, go ahead and do that. I got a pretty large catalog of to-do videos. Don't want you to miss out. And you see here how for less than $5 you can get yourself a pretty good bit of terrain. Brings a lot to the table, gives you the high ground, and didn't cost you a whole bunch of money. Hey folks, remember you're awesome, have a great day,